The neon lights of Station Omega-7 flickered like dying stars, casting purple shadows across the crowded cantina. In the furthest corner booth, away from the gambling tables and synthetic music, sat a young human woman who looked entirely out of place. Jade Chen nursed her drink slowly, her dark eyes scanning the room with practiced caution. She wore simple cargo pants and a worn leather jacket, but what caught attention was the delicate silver bracelet wrapped around her left wrist. It looked like something a grandmother might pass down, innocent, almost fragile. The bracelet hummed, softly, a sound only she could hear. It had been doing that more frequently lately, as if sensing the danger that followed her across 3 star systems. Jade touched it gently, feeling the warm metal pulse against her skin like a second heartbeat. Most people assumed it was jewelry. They had no idea they were looking at the most dangerous weapon in the known galaxy. "Another round for the pretty human," growled a voice that sounded like grinding metal. Jade didn't look up as Captain Voss. Kellyan approached her table. The alien pirate was massive, even by his species standards. His forearms ended in clawed hands, and his scaled hide bore the scars of 100 battles. Behind him stood 6 members of his crew, each more terrifying than the last. "I'm fine, thanks," Jade replied quietly, taking another sip of her drink. Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. She had hoped to slip through this station unnoticed, refuel her ship, and disappear into the outer rim territories, but luck had never been her strong suit. Kellyan's laugh echoed through the cantina, like breaking glass. Several patrons quickly finished their drinks and left. "Hear that, boys? The little flesh bag thinks she has a choice." His crew chuckled, spreading out to block any escape routes. "See? We've been watching you, human. You've got credits and we need credits. Simple transaction." Nix, the 3-eyed bartender, polished glasses nervously behind the counter. He'd seen this dance before. Pirates would corner some unlucky traveler, take everything they had, and sometimes worse. The smart move was to stay quiet and clean up the mess afterward. But something about this human girl bothered him. She sat too still, too calm for someone facing 7 armed killers. "I told you I'm not interested," Jade said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. She placed her right hand flat on the table, fingers spread. "Walk away." Kellyan's 4 eyes narrowed. "Wrong answer, sweetheart." He reached across the table with one massive arm, intending to grab her throat and show his crew how humans broke, under pressure. His clawed fingers were inches from her neck when Jade made a small gesture with her left hand. The bracelet pulsed once, bright enough to cast shadows across the wall. Kellyan's arm stopped moving. Not by choice. It simply froze in midair as if trapped in invisible amber. His eyes widened in confusion as he tried to pull back, muscles straining against something he couldn't see or understand. The other pirates moved to help their captain, but they found themselves equally frozen, suspended in positions of attack like statues in a museum of violence. What are you doing?" Kellyan managed to gasp, his voice strained with effort. Jade stood slowly, her drink still in her right hand. The bracelet glowed brighter now, casting silver light across her face. "I'm giving you one last chance to reconsider your life choices." She walked around the table, moving between the frozen pirates like they were furniture. "This bracelet controls gravitational fields. Right now, I'm creating localized gravity wells that are holding you in place. If I wanted, I could reverse the polarity and turn you all into very messy paste on the ceiling." The cantina had gone completely silent. Even the music had stopped. Nix dropped the glass he was holding, and it shattered on the floor like thunder. "Impossible," Kellyan wheezed. "Humans don't have that kind of technology. You're primitives, barely past chemical rockets." Jade smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's what we let everyone think. Makes it easier to survive when half the galaxy wants to enslave us and the other half wants to eat us." She tapped the bracelet with one finger, and the pirates suddenly found they could move again, but only to fall to their knees as the gravity around them tripled. "Here's what's going to happen," she continued, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "You're going to take your crew and leave this station. You're going to find honest work, maybe try farming on some nice quiet planet, and you're going to forget you ever saw me." "And if we don't?" Kellyan managed to ask through gritted teeth. Jade's expression hardened. Then I'll show you what this bracelet can really do. She gestured again, and one of the heavy metal tables across the room simply crumpled, folding in on itself until it was the size of a marble. The sound of tortured metal filled the air like a scream. The pirates needed no further demonstration. As soon as Jade released them from the artificial gravity, they scrambled toward the exit, supporting their captain between them. "This isn't over, human," Kellyan called back, his pride wounded more than his body. "Word will spread about what you carry. They'll come for you, bounty hunters, military forces, entire fleets. You can't hide forever." "I know," Jade replied, quietly. She watched them disappear into the station's corridors, then turned back to her table. Her drink was still there, ice barely melted, but everything had changed now. The secret was out. Nix approached carefully, his 3 eyes fixed on the bracelet. "Miss, I don't know what that thing is, but Kellyan was right about one thing. Word travels fast out here. By tomorrow, every cutthroat and government agent in 3 sectors will know about you." Jade nodded, finishing her drink in one swallow. "Then I better get moving." She placed a few credits on the table and headed for the door, but Nix called after her. "Wait, why didn't you just kill them? Would have been easier, and they sure deserved it." She paused at the threshold, not turning around. "Because that's not who we are. Humans fight when we have to, protect what matters, but we don't kill for convenience. That's what makes us different from the rest of the galaxy." As Jade disappeared into the station's maze of corridors, Nix poured himself a drink with shaking hands. Through the cantina's viewport, he could see ships beginning to launch from the docking bays. Word was already spreading through the communication, networks bouncing from station to station, planet to planet. Somewhere in the depths of space, in the command center of a massive dreadnought, Admiral Korath of the Void Empire received a priority transmission. His 8 eyes studied the grainy security footage from the cantina, watching the human girl demonstrate impossible technology. He had spent decades hunting down ancient weapons, collecting artifacts that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But this was different. This was human technology, which meant there might be more of it. An entire species with the power to manipulate gravity itself would be either the greatest ally or the most dangerous enemy the Void Empire had ever faced. "Prepare the hunter fleets," he commanded his subordinates. "I want that human brought to me alive, and find out everything we can about Earth's true capabilities. If they've been hiding this level of technology, what else might they have?" Back on Station Omega-7, Jade reached her small cargo ship just as the first bounty hunters were receiving their contracts. She climbed aboard the Phoenix Rising, a battered but reliable vessel that had carried her across half the galaxy. As the engines warmed up, she looked down at the bracelet one more time. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the small device. "I know, you were meant to stay hidden, but I couldn't let them hurt innocent people." The bracelet pulsed gently as if responding to her words. Deep within its quantum matrix, ancient human technology stirred. Systems designed by Earth's greatest scientists, as humanity's last hope against a hostile universe. It had taken generations to perfect, and now it rested on the wrist of a young engineer who never asked to carry such responsibility. As the Phoenix Rising launched into hyperspace, leaving Station Omega-7 behind, Jade didn't notice the small tracking device that had attached itself to her ship's hull. Commander Thys Maldrek, the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter, smiled from his cloaked vessel. The chase was about to begin. The bracelet hummed once more, and somewhere in the quantum foam between dimensions, it sent out a signal. A message that would reach Earth in 7 days, warning humanity that their secret weapon had been discovered, and their daughter needed help. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when they fought for love, for freedom, and for family. 3 days after the incident at Station Omega-7, Jade's face appeared on every bounty board from the core worlds to the outer rim. The reward was staggering. 50 million credits for her capture, alive only. Dead, she was worthless. Which told her everything about what they really wanted. They needed the bracelet intact, and they needed her to operate it. The Phoenix Rising drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, engines powered down to avoid detection. Jade sat in the pilot's chair staring at the wanted poster on her console screen. The image was grainy, taken from the cantina's security feed, but it clearly showed her face and the silver bracelet. Under her picture, the text read, "Extremely dangerous. Possesses unknown weapon technology." "Unknown," she muttered, touching the bracelet absently. If only they knew how right they are. A proximity alarm chimed softly. Jade's blood ran cold as she checked the scanner. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace, their energy signatures matching military-grade hunters. They'd found her, again somehow managing to track her across 2 star systems despite her best efforts to cover her trail. She powered up the engines and broke from the moon's shadow, but it was too late. The lead ship was already hailing her on all frequencies. Against her better judgment, she answered. "This is Commander Thijs Maldrick of the Independent Bounty Guild," came a voice like liquid ice. "Jade Chen, you are wanted for questioning regarding illegal weapons possession. Surrender now and you will not be harmed." Jade had heard of Maldrick. The alien was a legend among bounty hunters, known for never losing a target and never killing when capture was possible. His species, the Cathara, were natural predators with enhanced reflexes and the ability to see across multiple light spectrums. If anyone could track her across the galaxy, it would be him. "Thanks for the offer," she replied, already plotting a jump to hyperspace. "But I'll have to decline." "I was hoping you'd say that." Maldrick's voice carried what might have been amusement. "The chase is always more interesting than the surrender." Before Jade could respond, her ship shuddered under weapons fire. Not lethal shots, precise hits designed to disable her engines without destroying the ship. Maldrick wasn't trying to kill her, but he wasn't playing games either. The Phoenix Rising limped toward the nearest asteroid field, trailing plasma from a damaged thruster. Jade pushed the engines as hard as she dared, weaving between floating rocks the size of mountains. Behind her, Maldrick's ships followed with predatory patience, their superior technology allowing them to match her every move. That's when she saw it, a small cargo freighter drifting near one of the larger asteroids, its hull scarred but intact. As she passed, the ship's comm crackled to life. "Hey there, beautiful. Looks like you could use a hand." The voice was human, male, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Through her view screen, she could see a figure in the freighter's cockpit. Dark hair, easy smile, and the kind of confidence that came from years of outrunning trouble. "Who is this?" she demanded, still trying to evade Maldrick's pursuit. "Name's Raven Torres. I run cargo through these parts, and I've got a talent for making unwanted visitors disappear." "You interested?" Jade hesitated. Trusting strangers had never ended well for her. But with Maldrick closing in and her engines failing, she didn't have many options. "What do you want in return?" "Right now? Just to see what's got the great Thijs Maldrick so worked up. Long term? Well, we can discuss that over dinner." Despite everything, Jade found herself smiling. "You're insane. Probably. But I'm also your best shot at getting out of here alive. You coming or not?" Another volley of shots struck her ship and the main engine died completely. "On my way," she said, grabbing her emergency pack and heading for the escape pod. The transfer was harrowing, launching herself across open space while Maldrick's ships closed in, hoping Raven's targeting was as good as his confidence. She slammed into the cargo bay of his freighter just as the Phoenix Rising exploded behind her, victim of a final desperate shot from the bounty hunters. "Welcome aboard the Starfire," Raven said, helping her to her feet. Up close, he was even more attractive than she'd expected. Tall, lean, with warm brown eyes and a scar along his jaw that spoke of dangerous living. "Hope you don't get motion sick because this is about to get interesting." What followed was the most insane piece of flying Jade had ever experienced. Raven pushed his ship through asteroid fields, dove into planetary atmospheres, and jumped through hyperspace with coordinates that should have been impossible to calculate. Somehow he stayed one step ahead of Maldrick's pursuit, using tricks and routes that spoke of years spent on the wrong side of galactic law. Hours later, they sat in the Starfire's small galley, sharing ration packs and cheap wine. Raven had finally lost their pursuers in the maze of a nebula, but they both knew it was only temporary. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "want to tell me why half the galaxy is trying to capture you?" Jade touched the bracelet reflexively. "It's complicated. I've got time. And wine." Something in his voice made her want to trust him. Maybe it was the way he'd risked his life to save her, or maybe it was simply that she was tired of running, alone. "What do you know about humanity's real history?" "Same as everyone else, I suppose. Earth was a backwater planet that got lucky, developed spaceflight, and somehow managed not to get conquered by the first alien empire they met." Jade shook her head. "That's the story we tell. The truth is different. When humanity first encountered alien civilizations, we realized we were hopelessly outgunned. While other species had been traveling the stars for millennia, we'd barely made it to our own moon. So we did what humans do best. We adapted." She held up her wrist, letting the bracelet catch the light. "This is the result of a century of secret research. While the galaxy thought we were struggling with basic technology, our best scientists were developing weapons that could level the playing field." Raven whistled softly. "And that little bracelet is one of them?" "It manipulates gravitational fields at the quantum level. In the right hands, it can create black holes, reverse gravity, or compress matter to the point of fusion." She met his eyes. "I've been running because if the wrong people get this technology, they could enslave or destroy entire worlds." "And what makes you the right people?" The question hung in the air between them. Jade had asked herself the same thing countless times during her long flight across the galaxy. "Maybe nothing," she admitted. "But I know what makes others the wrong people. I've seen what the Void Empire does to worlds that resist them. I've watched species get wiped out because they had something someone else wanted." Raven reached across the table and touched her hand gently. The contact sent electricity through her skin, and she realized how long it had been since someone had touched her with kindness instead of violence. "You know they'll never stop chasing you," he said softly. "I know. And you know that eventually, even you won't be able to fight them all off." "I know that too." He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on her knuckles. "What if you didn't have to run alone?" Jade's heart skipped. "Raven, you don't understand what you're offering. This isn't just about me. This is about the future of human independence, maybe the freedom of dozens of species. If we're caught, then we're caught together." His smile was warm and genuine. "I've been running cargo and dodging authorities my whole life. Maybe it's time I ran towards something instead of away from it." Before she could respond, the ship's alarms began blaring. On the view screen, Maldrick's ships emerged from the nebula, their scanners finally picking up the Starfire's trail. "How did they find us so fast?" Raven demanded, racing to the pilot's seat. Jade checked the scanner readings and her blood went cold. "Because they're not just tracking the ship, they're tracking this." She held up the bracelet, which was pulsing, with a faint energy signature. "The weapon has a beacon?" "Not intentionally, but when I use it, it creates quantum disturbances. Maldrick must have equipment sensitive enough to follow the trail. More ships were dropping out of hyperspace around them. Not just bounty hunters, this time. Military vessels flying the colors of 3 different empires, all converging on their position." "Jade," Raven said, his voice tight with concentration as he tried to plot an escape route. "I need you to know something." "What?" "I think I'm falling in love with you." Despite the danger, despite the ships closing in around them, Jade felt warmth spread through her chest. "That's terrible timing." "Yeah, well, I've never been good with timing." He grabbed her hand as the first shots began to impact their shields. "But if we're going to die, I wanted you to know." Jade looked at the bracelet, then at Raven, then at the swarm of ships surrounding them. Slowly, she began to smile. "Who said anything about dying?" She stood and moved to the ship's communication console. "This is Jade Chen, aboard the cargo vessel Starfire. I know you're all here for me and what I carry. Well, here's your chance." "Jade, what are you doing?" Raven whispered. She keyed the bracelet, feeling its power flow through her like liquid fire. Outside, space itself began to warp and twist as gravitational fields danced between the enemy ships. "I'm done running," she said. "Time to show them what humanity really fights for." The bracelet blazed like a star, and the real battle began. The battle in the nebula lasted 17 minutes and changed the course of galactic history forever. When Jade unleashed the bracelet's full power, reality itself seemed to bend around the starfire. Enemy ships found themselves caught in gravitational currents that pulled them in impossible directions. 3 destroyers collided when their local gravity fields reversed, sending them tumbling into each other like toys. A Void Empire dreadnought simply imploded, its hull compressed to the size of a basketball in the span of a heartbeat. But Jade paid a price for the display. Blood ran from her nose as the quantum feedback tore through her nervous system. The bracelet wasn't meant to be used at such intensity, and her human biology could barely contain the forces flowing through it. "Jade!" Raven caught her as she collapsed, the bracelet's glow fading to a dull silver. Around them, the surviving enemy ships were retreating, their captains suddenly understanding that they faced something beyond their comprehension. "I'm okay," she whispered, though they both knew it was a lie. Using the bracelet like that had shortened her lifespan by years, maybe decades. "But we need to get out of here. They'll be back with bigger fleets." Raven helped her to the pilot's chair, his face grim with worry. "Where can we go? Every port in the galaxy will be watching for us now." "There's a place," Jade said weakly. "Hidden coordinates my mentor gave me before she disappeared. A sanctuary where humans developed the bracelet technology." She began, entering navigation data with shaking fingers. "It's time you met the real resistance." The jump took them to the edge of known space to a system that didn't appear on any official star charts. What they found there made Raven's breath catch in his throat. Hidden among a cluster of asteroids was a massive space station. Its design, clearly human but incorporating technology he'd never seen before. "Welcome to Haven Station," Jade said as their ship was guided into a docking bay. "Humanity's secret weapon isn't just the bracelets. It's what we do when we work together." The station bustled with activity. Humans and aliens worked side by side, their faces bearing the determined expressions of people fighting for something greater than themselves. Jade was greeted like a long-lost daughter, but there was urgency in their welcomes. "Thank the stars you made it," said a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She wore a bracelet identical to Jade's, though hers pulsed with a different rhythm. "I'm Dr. Helena Voss, the original designer of the quantum gravity manipulators. We've been monitoring the situation." "Helena?" Jade stared in shock. "You're supposed to be dead. The report said your research station was destroyed." "Staged," Helena replied with a sad smile. "We needed the galaxy to think the technology died with me. But we've been working here ever since, developing not just weapons, but a future where humanity and our allies can be free." She led them through corridors lined with laboratories and workshops. Aliens of dozens of species worked alongside humans, their combined knowledge creating wonders that neither could achieve alone. "The bracelets were just the beginning," Helena explained. "We've developed faster-than-light communication, defensive fields that can protect entire planets, and yes, weapons that could level the playing field against any empire." Raven looked around in amazement. "How many people know about this place?" "Not enough," said a new voice. They turned to see a man in military dress approaching, his bearing that of a career soldier. "I'm General Morrison, head of the Human Liberation Front. We've been fighting a shadow war against the major empires for decades, but recent events have forced our hand." He led them to a central command center where holographic displays showed fleet movements across the galaxy. 3 hours ago, the Void Empire declared martial law in 17 systems. They're rounding up humans and alien sympathizers trying to find more bracelet technology. We estimate they'll begin systematic extermination within the week. Jade felt sick. "This is my fault. I should have stayed hidden." "No," Helena said firmly. "This was always going to happen. The empires were never going to let humanity remain independent forever. Your actions just accelerated the timeline." "So what do we do?" Raven asked. his hand finding Jade's and squeezing gently. General Morrison's expression was grim. We end this, one way or another. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Using the quantum communication network Helena's team had developed, they would coordinate simultaneous strikes against the Void Empire's primary command ships across 50 systems. But the key target was Admiral Korath's flagship, the Absolute Dominion, where intelligence suggested he was developing his own version of the bracelet technology. If Korath succeeds in reverse engineering our quantum manipulators, Helena explained, he'll have the power to crush any resistance. We have to stop him before that happens. Jade and Raven volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission, infiltrating the Dominion itself. They would be inserted via a captured Void Empire shuttle, posing as prisoners being delivered to Korath personally. This is insane, Raven said as they prepared for launch. Even if we get aboard, how do we fight an entire dreadnought crew? Jade smiled, touching the bracelet. Leave that to me. Just focus on getting us to their computer core. If we can upload Helena's virus, it'll disable their weapons and shields long enough for our fleet to finish the job. As their shuttle approached, the massive flagship, Jade felt a strange calm settle over her. For months she'd been running, hiding, afraid of what would happen if she used her power too freely. Now, surrounded by people fighting for the same cause, she felt ready to risk everything. The shuttle bay of the Dominion was enormous, large enough to hold dozens of smaller ships. As they were escorted through corridors lined with armed guards, Jade marveled at the sheer scale of the vessel. It was a city in space, home to thousands of crew members from across the Void Empire. Admiral Korath waited in his private chambers, a creature of elegant menace with pale blue skin and eyes like black diamonds. On his desk sat a device that made Jade's blood run cold, a crude copy of her bracelet, its quantum matrix glowing with unstable energy. The famous Jade Chen, he said in a voice like silk over steel. Do you know how long I've waited to meet you? Probably not as long as I've waited to meet you, she replied. I hear you're having trouble with your little toy there. Korath's expression darkened. My scientists assure me it's merely a matter of calibration. Once we understand how your primitive human brain interfaces with the technology, we'll have our own army of gravity manipulators. Good luck with that, Jade said. But you're missing something crucial. And what might that be? She looked at Raven, who gave her the slightest nod. The virus upload was complete. The technology isn't what makes us dangerous, she said, raising her hand as the bracelet began to glow. It's what we're willing to sacrifice for the people we love. What followed was a battle that would be remembered in the halls of Haven, stationed for generations. Jade's bracelet sang with power as she turned the Dominion's own structure against its crew. Bulkheads crumpled, gravity fields reversed, and corridors became mazes of twisted metal. But she wasn't fighting alone. Throughout the ship, Raven had triggered hidden allies, humans, and sympathetic aliens who had been waiting for this moment. The virus spread through the ship's systems like wildfire, shutting down weapons, disabling shields, and broadcasting the coordinates of every Void Empire fleet to the waiting liberation forces. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as the Shadow War finally came into the light. In the flagship's command center, Admiral Korath made his final stand. He wore the stolen bracelet technology, but his alien biology couldn't handle the quantum feedback. As he tried to match Jade's power, his own weapon began consuming him from within. You don't understand, he gasped, as his body began to break down at the cellular level. Without order, without control, the galaxy will tear itself apart. Maybe, Jade admitted, standing over his collapsing form. But at least it'll be free to make that choice. Korath's final words were lost as his makeshift bracelet overloaded, taking him and half the command deck with it. Hours later, as rescue ships arrived to evacuate the surviving crew of the Dominion, Jade and Raven stood together in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars wheel slowly past. Her bracelet was dark now, its power finally exhausted after the massive battle. So what happens now? Raven asked, his arm around her waist. Now we rebuild, she said, leaning into his warmth. The Liberation Fleet is already moving to free the occupied systems. Helena's team will share the defensive technologies with any species that wants them. And maybe, for the first time in galactic history, the smaller civilizations will have a real chance at independence. And us? Jade smiled, thinking of all the possibilities ahead. Well, someone's going to need to coordinate between all these newly free worlds. Make sure they don't fall back into the same patterns of conquest and control. She turned in his arms, her eyes bright with hope and exhaustion. I was thinking maybe a couple of crazy humans might be just stupid enough to try. Raven laughed, pulling her closer. I love it when you talk about the future like we're going to be in it together. Aren't we? Instead of answering with words, he kissed her, soft and warm and full of promise. Around them, the galaxy turned on its axis, forever changed by the courage of those willing to fight for love, for freedom, and for the radical idea that all sentient beings deserved the right to choose their own destiny. The deadliest weapon in the galaxy, it turned out, wasn't a device that could manipulate gravity or compress matter into singularities. It was something far more dangerous and infinitely more powerful, the human capacity to hope, to love, and to fight for both against impossible odds. As their ship turned toward home, toward Haven Station and the work of building a better tomorrow, the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself approved of what they had accomplished. And in the quantum foam between dimensions where the bracelet's technology had first learned to touch the fundamental forces of reality, something new stirred, not a weapon this time, but a promise. The promise that love could indeed conquer stars and that the future belonged to those brave enough to reach for it together.